Hey everyone, I'm Jess. Welcome to Glue La La. Today I'm going to show you two different ways that you can use the mini Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree to create either something to hang on your front door or just hang on your wall. And the one piece you could actually even use as a swag, maybe on a table or a mantle. Now I decided to do these in mostly golds and burlap because I wanted pieces that I could leave up past Christmas and maybe keep up all winter until the time that I want to decorate for spring. Okay, let's get started. For the first project, I took 3 of these plastic bells that you can find at the Dollar Tree, and they come, like this one, it has like a smooth surface, but some of them have a little bit of a textured surface, and some of them almost look like they have a checkerboard on them. And I painted the outside of them with 2 coats of the plaster paint by Waverly. And then I took one of the mini Christmas trees and I took the little cap that's on the bottom and I started flaring out the branches. And I'm flaring this out so that the back side is going to stay flat. So all the branches are going to come out to the side. Like, I'm not going to form it into a tree because it's actually going to hang upside down, more of like a swag. So once my bells were dry, I took the mineral color by Waverly and I just did a little bit of a dry brushing on the outside of these. Now, I didn't paint the inside of these at all because I kind of liked how the gold sort of poked through a little bit and gave it just a little bit of shine, especially because I'm going to be using some gold ribbon, so I thought it tied in together pretty well. And I didn't worry about covering the top of the bell. You can still see there's a lot of gold there because we're going to be covering that up later with something else. To cover up the top of the bell, I'm just going to be using some jute twine, and I just added a little bit of hot glue to the base of that little knob there. And I just started wrapping the jute the whole way to the top. But once I got to the top, I didn't cut it off because I took some of the nautical rope from the Dollar Tree and I put that down inside the hole because that's going to be the hanger for the bell. So once I had the rope glued in place inside the bell, then I used the jute twine that I didn't cut off and I continued wrapping it up onto the nautical rope to help blend the two together. Once I had the rope glued in place, I measured it out and I compared it to the length of the tree because I knew that I wanted one of the bells to hang almost towards the bottom of the tree. So I cut that length to fit, and then I did the same with all 3 bells. And to connect the 3 ropes together, I just took some more jute twine and I tied it around. And I had to use a clip here because I ended up cutting one of the ropes a little bit too short, but I just tied the jute around the 3 ropes, and then I added a little bit of hot glue and I just wrapped the jute around the ropes to kind of give it a finished look. And then you'll take that and connect it to the top of the swag, which is actually the bottom of the Christmas tree. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. So I added a little bit of hot glue to the ropes to glue it to the base of the Christmas tree. And then these bells actually had this piece of wired garland as the handle, so I just took a piece of that and wrapped it around the top. Okay, so to get started on the bow, I'm going to be using this burlap ribbon and some gold ribbon, and I think I found both of these at Michael's maybe last year after Christmas. And I knew I wanted the base of my bow to be about 12 inches wide. So I'm using the burlap first, and I'm just looping it over on itself until I have 3 loops on each side. And then the gold ribbon, because that's going to lay on top of the burlap and it's going to be more towards the center of the bow, I needed that to be a little bit shorter, a little bit wider in the base. So I measured that out to 10 inches and I looped that around until I had 2 loops on each side. And then I took each ribbon and I just cut a section off to create tails for the bow. And then once you have all of your pieces cut, I have my 12-inch wide burlap and my 10-inch wide gold ribbon. You're going to fold the whole thing in half so you can find the center, and you're just going to cut a little notch into each side. So you only want to cut in about a 1/2 inch. It's just so that whenever you pull the bow apart, it makes it a little bit easier. And you're going to do that with the burlap, the gold, and then both of the tails as well. And you're going to pile it up so you'll have the tails on the bottom and then the burlap and then the gold, because it goes from the widest to the more narrow. And I use a pipe cleaner and I lay the bow down on top, and then you can see there the pipe cleaner kind of fits inside of those notches that I cut. That helps create a better base in the center so that you can fluff out the bow. And then you add the tails and then you just twist the pipe cleaner a couple times. You can kind of pinch the center if you need to on the ribbon. And this type of bow works best if you use a wired ribbon. So this ribbon, the gold and the burlap, they both have wires on both of the outside edges. So once you have your pipe cleaner in place, you just start pulling apart the bow and fluffing out the loops. And when I make a bow, I fluff with it for a long time. So I'll pull the loops out and then I'll go through and I'll start cutting my tails like to the lengths that I like. And I always like to cut a little V shape on the end. It's called a dovetail. And then I'll add it to my project and then I'll start fluffing the bow some more. So whenever you're making a bow, you'll keep working with it. And the notches that we cut in the ribbon actually make it a little bit easier to keep pulling it apart and keep fluffing it and making it look fuller. And I think I had mentioned when I was showing you how to measure out the pieces that I created this bow with 3 loops on each side, but there's actually only 2 on each side because the next one we're going to create for the next project will have 3. But that's where it kind of comes in, where you can kind of play around with this and you can make this as big and full as you want just by creating more loops. And you're just folding it on top of itself, so the pattern, if there's a pattern on your ribbon, it's always going to be on the outside. So to connect our bow to our swag, I do have a little piece of a craft stick hot glued on there, just because I wanted a little bit of a more solid base for the bow to connect to. So I added a little bit of hot glue to the craft stick, and then I set the bow down on top of it. And remember, that pipe cleaner's still there. So then we'll just twist tie the pipe cleaner around, and then there was enough length left on the pipe cleaner that I just twisted the 2 ends together to form a circle, and that's what I used to hang this up with. And then you can see once I flipped it back over, I continued to fluff out that bow a little bit more. So here's a look at the finished project. For me, I like to keep bells out all winter. I know a lot of people just kind of associate bells with Christmas, but my grandma always collected bells, so we kind of always had bells hanging around our house all the time. So it's something that I keep all winter. Okay, so for the second project, you'll need 2 of the mini Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree and a pack of the garland ties. So for these 2, you're going to fluff them out the same way that you did the first tree, where you're going to keep the back side of them kind of flat and you're just pulling the branches out to either side. And then I connected them in the center by using those garland twist ties because it helped connect the 2 together, but it also added more greenery in the center where it was bare, where the 2 bases of the trees connected. And then after I had the 2 trees connected, I went back through with some of those garland ties, and if there were any sparse areas, I twisted a piece around just to help make it a little bit fuller. So the Dollar Tree had these really pretty gold glittery branches this year, And these were actually the perfect size for this project. I didn't have to cut them apart or anything. I just kind of flared them out a little bit and added them on top of the 2 trees. And here you can see this is starting to make like a cute little swag here. And I used another piece of that garland twist tie stuff, and I twisted those 2 together, and then I connected it to the 2 trees with more of the garland ties. So I used almost a whole pack of the garland ties. I think there's 12 in a pack, but it really helped to kind of make these trees look a little bit fuller because they are a little bit sparse when you pull them out of the packaging. Okay, so I'm going to create the same kind of bow that we did for the first project, and the measurements are the same. The burlap I cut to 12 inches wide and the gold I cut to 10 inches wide. And for this one, I did loop it around enough times so that each side of the ribbon would have 3 loops instead of just 2 like we did in the first one. And you can see it's the same process. I'm just folding them in half and cutting the notches in and doing the notches in the tails, and then using a pipe cleaner to pinch it all together. And because there's 3 loops on each side with this ribbon, this bow will be a little bit fuller than the first one we made. And I'm cutting the ends the same and everything in the same dovetail shape. And I knew that I wanted to hang this swag that I made up, so that's why I decided to use a bow for in the center of it. But I could almost see this, because it does lay pretty flat, I could almost see being able to add some cute little maybe LED candles and using this on a table, or propping it up on a mantle and putting a little piece of decoration or something in the center of it. So I added a piece of craft stick again to the center of this just to have something to set the bow on, and I used the pipe cleaner that we used to tie the bow in the center to attach it to the center of the swag. And again, the same way with the first project, there was enough length left on the pipe cleaner that I could just form it into a circle to hang it up with. Here's a look at our final project. I really like how these 2 pieces came out. I like to keep things up all winter, and I really like the gold and the burlap together. Those aren't colors that I typically use, but I really like how these turned out. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave me a comment, let me know which project is your favorite, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!